With an airbrush, I primed these miniatures black before spraying a white ink from above. My original idea was to apply speed paint for the general suit color, and if I had thought this out, I would have brought the speed paint to my airbrush and sprayed that as well. Instead, I applied it with the large brush, removing any excess with another clean brush as needed. However, this did not really have the look that I wanted. The zenithal spray of ink did give a lighter color towards the top, but I wanted the shadows to be more saturated. So I wait until everything is dry before returning to the airbrush, this time applying a darker color as opposed to black from below. And then once again I apply a spray of white ink from above. I follow this with a zenithal application of the speed paint before returning to my desk to finish the rest of the work with the brush. All of the airbrush work took less than an hour, including cleaning. For this video, I'll only show the painting of the Red Ranger, but the steps for each of the others remain the same, albeit with different colors. And as always, all paints for each step can be found in a spreadsheet excerpt shown near the end of this video. With the mid-gray, I block in all of what will be the white elements of the clothing. The diamond pattern on the chest, the gloves and boots, the belt, the neck, and around what will be the visor. I never noticed before painting these figures, but the Red Ranger's helmet is the only one of the original 5 Rangers that has white around the black visor. I applied this base coat 4 times with fairly thin paint, as I'm trying to have as smooth of a finish as I can, as I want the nice vibrant white I've grown accustomed to in the Power Ranger commercials and advertisements. Though if you watch the show, you'd remember the white in the battle scenes were always dingy and stained, particularly in the cuts from the Japanese version that were spliced into what we received in the US. For the white clothing's first highlight, I make a lighter gray by adding some more white to the original mix that I used for the base coat, and much like the base coat, I apply this highlight over 4 or 5 applications, focusing on as smooth a finish as I can muster. The paint was thinned with a little bit of water, and this highlight was applied to about 75% of all of the white clothing. The majority of the places it was not applied were on the downward facing portions of the boots, gloves, or parts of the torso under the arms. The final white highlight is done with titanium white thinned with a little bit of water and follows the same approach, 4 or 5 light coats allowing plenty of time to dry in between to help have a smooth finish. I cover about 50 to 60% of the area with this highlight. And to be upfront, the bulk of the effort on painting these 9 models consisted of painting the white portions of the clothing. It sounds ridiculous, but it took approximately 33 hours. And that seems mind-boggling. However, there are 9 of these models and they are big, 48mm big. Couple that with the multiple thin coats done to aid in a smoother finish and it quickly adds up. I actually started painting these models 2 months ago and I've just now been able to finish them. I did the silver medals next, as this was the second biggest part of the project. Ultimately, it went by in a short amount of time, but it was one of the steps that I was dreading. Due to having airbrushed the colors of the costume, I was very worried about accidentally getting metallic paint where I did not want it. Granted, I could remove it with the clean damp brush, but metallic paint tends to leave little bits of metallic flecks when doing so, and fixing any airbrush colors wouldn't be fun at this stage. Luckily, I made few errors and was able to clean them without any issues. The areas around the silver mouths and the teeth on the Red Ranger's visor were the most anxiety-inducing. I only did one highlight for the silver medals, using Army Painter's Shining Silver over the darker gun metal base. These I apply over about 50% of the medals, excluding parts facing downwards. This was much less stressful than the base coat, as I just avoided the harder to reach areas since they would naturally be darker recesses anyway. The gold spots went by even faster as there were far less gold than silver and appeared only on 2 helmets and 2 weapons and the power coins on all of the belts. Just like the silvers, the gold bits consisted of a base coat followed by 1 highlight. Altogether, painting the silvers and golds took roughly 4.5 hours, and moving slowly and carefully to minimize any further mistakes. I moved on to the blasters next. Even though the blaster on the Red Ranger is already red from the airbrush work, I still paint it by brush so that it'll match the red tones that will be on the blasters for the other Rangers. Only the 4 replacement Ranger models, Adam, Catherine, Aisha, and Rocky, have blasters, so this step goes by very quickly. The blasters consist of a black for the handle, my silver tones for the previous steps for the interlocking teeth on the handle from where the blaster collapses to fit into the holster, and then the rest is done with 2 shades of red, one for a base coat and the other for an edge highlight. I also paint the red onto the power coins, which was a mistake that I'll talk about more at the end of this video. It doesn't cause problems with the painting, but rather there shouldn't be red on the coins. Though not shown here during this time, I also paint the green gems on the Red Ranger's power sword and the yellow stripes on the Black Ranger's power axe. The blasters, gems, and stripes take me about an hour and a half to complete. With matte black, I paint in all of the black details, such as the sole of the boots, body of the morpher, eyes on the red and yellow helmets, insets on the handles for the power daggers and power lance, stripes on the belts and blaster holsters, and finally, the helmet lenses. Applying the black took about 3 hours. I considered also adding black hatching lines all over the model to create more shadows and give it more of a comic book appearance, but this was already taking long enough and I didn't want to drag this project on any longer than it already had. With the finish line now in sight, I press on and turn to Mr. Weathering's multi-black and solvent for a pen wash. I mix these with a synthetic brush and a metal palette that is in desperate need of a good cleaning. Jesus! Here I have 2 mixtures, one more concentrated at the top and one less concentrated at the bottom. I also add a little from the top to the bottom mix until I have the consistency that I want, which is as dark as I can go while it still runs easily down the side of the palette. Once I'm happy, I gently touch the brush where I want this stuff to go, and it does the rest. Any excess can be easily removed with the pass of a finger, or for more precision or stubborn spots, a clean brush lightly dampened with the solvent. The pen wash and cleanup took less than 45 minutes. I tackled the bases next by thinning AK Interactive's concrete with a little water and applying this across the base. Any texture paste is fine for this, I just grabbed one. The main thing is that it was a light colored texture paste so that I can apply a green speed paint directly over it once it's dry. I then black out the rim before dabbing on a little of Army Painter's PVA glue. With a damp brush, I spread that PVA glue around, careful not to get the glue on the Rangers themselves. You can use any slow drying adhesive for this, so long as it dries transparent. The Army Painter glue goes on white, but when it dries, it'll become fully transparent. Once the glue is completely dried, I tap off the excess and with a clean brush, dust off any flocking that it may have gotten on the legs. Next, I apply Army Painter's gloss varnish to the morphers, the handles of the weapons, and the helmets to give it a different finish and match the look from the helmets on the TV show. With the final hurdle ahead of me, I drill a shallow notch in the bottom of the base with a 1/4-inch bit, careful not to drill completely through, and then I glue in a 6mm by 2mm neodymium magnet, pressing it in with the back of a Sharpie. And this is where I ended the project. It was a long road to get these done, taking me an estimated 46 hours of work, with 33 of those hours on just painting the white clothing. That sounds insane, but when you break down the total time for 9 miniatures, you end up with about 5 hours of work on each. And for a 48mm model, that's actually pretty quick. I easily spend twice that on average for one 28mm miniature. Otherwise, I'm not only happy with these finally being done, but also with how they came out. I can't tell you how many times I yelled out, "It's morphin' time!" followed by each of the dinosaurs in their respective morphing order. For lessons learned, I made a mistake on the red of the power coins, not paying attention to the reference photos. I painted an upper and lower part of the circle, giving it appearance of lips. It should have been a full circle. When the morphers are used to actually, morph, the upper and lower part of the morpher extends, splitting the circle into 2 parts. When it's on their waist, like a belt buckle, it's collapsed again and should be a full circle. I know this is minor, but missed details like this irk me. Additionally, the red circle should be around the said power coin, not actually on the power coin itself. And as always, the ever-present mold lines haunt me. But to be fair, they are much worse on these cheaper molded models, but that doesn't excuse me missing as many or doing as poor of a job as I did on some spots, particularly on the Yellow Ranger, especially on her arms and helmet. And that'll bring this video to its end. I hope you learned something or inspired to expand or start your own Mighty Morphin collection of colorful spandex sporting teenagers. Oh wait, that doesn't sound right. If you have any questions, feel free to ask, and if you like the content of this video and would like to see more, you can easily support this channel by liking, commenting, sharing, and subscribing. I'm Jim with Working With Miniatures. I'm truly grateful for your time, and I bid you a fond farewell. Until the next video.